Okay, thank you, Joanne.
All right, we're recording.
Thank you, Nish. Okay, so cool blocks. Let's put that down, and let's first just get a list of things that we can think of that we've done, and then let's try to do a run through and talk about how they went, or if they went well or didn't. So let's just start with a list of stuff we've done, and I'm putting it out to you guys.
Okay, I will call names since Lisa can't see. So we'll start with Liz. Why don't you tell us what you've got?
So this is something that builds on a comment that was just made earlier, but has also been important for groups across the city, which is to continue with the Zoom format. Not only does it allow people who might not be able to travel to attend and make comment, it also reduces carbon footprint across the city. It also allows people who might have issues with childcare or women who don't want to travel at night. So this is something that I think we need to fight for. Just because it's a 1953 law at the state level doesn't mean it can't be changed to.
Okay, so I'm going to interrupt because I just realized you're talking about, this is a goal for 2023, not something we worked on in 2022. So right now I'm asking a pretty specific question, and I just want people to shout stuff out briefly. I mean, shout is maybe the wrong thing, especially since I can't see you, but just name things that we worked on in 2022, and then we will talk about 2023 later.
We'll get you in the mix, Liz. That's a good topic, and we have discussed it, so we'll have feedback on it. Pat, you're up. You just muted yourself, Pat.
Oh, Pat.
There we go.
There you go.
I'm unmuted and I'm live. I don't know if this is a Sustainability Alliance project, but we did I spearheaded a couple projects last year. One of them,
okay, Pat, sorry, I'm sorry. I am asking a very specific question. We'll get to neighborhood council stuff if we have time, and we'll get to 2023 if we have time. But right now, I'm asking folks, what did we work on as the NCSA in 2022?
Okay,
That's my question.
Thank you. I understand.
Okay, sorry. I know it's been a little bit bumpy with me getting kicked out.
All good, all good. So Joanne, you're up next.
Okay, well, we had a very good zoo comment letter, and I think advocacy did a great job with working on that, and also the Sepulveda Basin. I see Melanie's on the call and probably would have brought this up, but I think our position on that was good. And I think we took one other position. I'm trying to remember, but I just felt good about the position statements of the NCSA this year, and hope we can do more of that. And I think as far as the trees committee, I think that we ventured into taking embracing the idea of tree planting, which we had shied away from before because I saw so much non-native tree planting, and I was waiting for the biodiversity report to come out and steer us in that direction. So I'm really pleased that we are moved to taking an educational, it's not a position, but it's a direction, yes, an educational direction disseminating information about native trees and their value. And I think that we've actually had some influence with that. I think obviously we can do more, but that's a big change for us this year, because we were afraid that if we embrace too much tree planting, too many non-natives would get planted and use up the space. So that's it.
Thank you, Joanne. Glenn, you're up. You're still muted.
The wildlife ordinance discussion and action, and also the several council files. I'm not going to list them all, but whenever you highlight council files, that's helpful. Thank you.
Do you happen to remember any? You don't. I'm not the council file number, but the issue for any of them, Glenn?
You're muted again, Glenn.
Oil and gas drilling, there was one, 170447. I'll put anything else I think of in chat.
Yeah, and anybody, I meant to say that earlier, so thank you, Glenn. Anybody, throw stuff into the chat, and if we're not talking about it, I can if somebody can save the chat for me, I will incorporate that into this document later.
Great. Anybody else? Does anybody have any? Okay, there we go. We've got Ravi.
Yeah, the building decarbonization, which the Energy Committee has, thought about for a long time. For a while, it seemed like every other city in the state was doing it except us. And then, I don't know, I can't remember what the event was, but something got it off the shelf and it finally happened. So it's probably many, many things that happened, but that's a huge sigh of relief.
All good. Richard?
Cool blocks. Anybody mention that yet?
Well,
Yeah,
we did.
It's on here. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're good. Anybody else have anything to add to this list?
Oh,
Glenn and Richard, you still have your hands up? Do you have something
I
else?
put it back up. I think that was this year as opposed to last year, but the LA democracy vouchers, the NCSA was the first group that I had heard about that from. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah, I don't think we actually.
Yeah,
ended
thank
up-
you. Ji-Young Park brought that to us, so I don't think she's here, but thank you to Ji-Young.
Nish, what do you got?
Yeah, I just want to second someone mentioned earlier about the mentioning or discussion of council files or upcoming council files, which is really useful because since a lot of the liaisons or other committee members here can bring it back to their neighborhood councils for discussion, who can then write a letter in support of these kind of measures. So I'd like to see that continued. Yeah, the democracy vouchers was great. I really appreciated those presentations, and also I really liked the invitation of candidates to come speak. I really liked the event with the Dulce Vasquez. I thought she was a really great candidate, and I found her discussion or her talk informative. So I like to encourage inviting city council members even, or whoever, to come speak on sustainability issues, environmental issues that they're doing in the city.
I think I want to point out.
Thank you, Nick.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Charles.
I was going to say, I think I just want to point out before I call the next person that one of the things Lisa works hard on is our evaluation forms when we do events. And we don't get, in some cases, a huge response to those, but this is an opportunity to point out that it's really helpful to us when you do those evaluation forms, because it lets us know what things really work for you, especially if you really dig an event. And so if you want to see more programming or more discussions like that, it's really useful for us to have that kind of tangible feedback. So please consider that going forward. John, what do you got for us?
No, sorry, I needed to say something because I can't see you. Heidi Feldstein Soto is planning on joining us around now. So Charles, if you can just let me know when she pops in. She is going to be our new city attorney tomorrow. So Charles, just let me know when she shows up, please.
I shall do that.
Thank
John Hales, what do you got?
Very good. I've got two things quickly. First of all, this past year, the word sustainability, 9 out of 10 people on my board and in the community had no idea what that is. They couldn't even spell it. Second thing is that I've been involved with planting trees. Yesterday, DWP will provide trees.
Okay.
We have 20
Wait,
trees.
John, we're doing something very focused right now. We're just listing NCSA things we did, worked on, achievements, failures, stuff we did or tried to do in 2022. That's the question.
I was just suggesting these were being planted. Thank you.
Joanne, you have your hand up again?
yeah. I was trying to get her name as I was trying to look up, but when I signed my name, I put the various organizations that I'm affiliated with, and this is an important one and has really led to my being able to have a voice. I had private conversation with Karen Bass. We had a group conversation with Heidi Feldstein Soto. And I also was able to write to Keith Mosey, who is head of Streets LA, and ask him when he replaced Greg Spots as his sustainability officer to get someone who was more versed about trees and more conscious of trees. And in fact, that actually has happened. And Anna, and I'm trying to remember her last name, whom he has designated, has been working on that Eagle Rock project where they're putting a bike lane in, and they actually polled the community. She polled the community to find out whether they wanted to preserve trees and could the bike lane go down the middle of the street so they wouldn't have to take out street trees. And so I think she is tree conscious, and I think maybe this is a good step. And I did write a letter to Keith about doing this. So I think that just the clout of our organization when I speak has helped, along with CFAC and the other organizations I'm affiliated with. But this one's very important. Thanks.
Great. Our Dunn representative, Joel Gonzalez, has his hand up. Joel, what do you have for us?
Hey, thanks, Charles. I'm not part of an NC. I just went to the mayor's last signing yesterday. I got sent because it had to do with sustainability. He signed his last, I don't know, bill, or I don't know what it was, but it's the sustainability one, the Green Energy Act or bill. I think the one that Biden had introduced. And he talked about that. He talked about all the efforts the NCs did this year. And at the site where we met, it was a park, a school playground. And there used to be oil fields. And I want to say they cleared them out that by then. And that's where they had the meeting, his last, where he signed. And he just thanked all the NCs for all the work they did. And he mentioned, I think they finished that project this year. That's all I'm mentioning those things. So, yeah, power to the NCs, honestly. I mean, that's it. That's what I wanted to say. Thanks.
Does anyone else have any success
Joel,
stories?
let me say, Joel, I didn't realize you were there. I was there. And it was a really super, super, super fun event. And Mayor Garcetti actually mentioned me by name, which I really, really, of course, appreciated. And I do want to make sure that the other things that we celebrate, Ravi was there, and I can't see the rest of you, so I don't know. Oh, Melanie was there. And the two other things that we celebrated yesterday, Ravi and Glenn have mentioned. Building decarbonization was one of the reasons we were celebrating yesterday. Oil and gas was another one. And the third one was this plastics, 3 motions regarding plastics that were sort of combined. So we are actually moving toward banning styrofoam in LA now. And that's due to a lot of the efforts of the Reusable LA Coalition, which the MCSA is a part of. So thank you for mentioning that, Joel.
And Nish was there too.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, Nish was there too. Thank you. Yeah. Anybody else?
I have one
I
more
can't see you guys,
thing.
so I can't remember.
I have one more.
Sorry?
I have one more.
Okay, go ahead.
And that is, it's quick, that Charles and I were both able to get workshops at the Congress of Neighborhoods, which I have never been able to before. And I was really pleased that we got that amount of time. We each got an hour there.
Yeah, that's
that
a great
That was
point.
a cool thing. Yeah, for sure. All right, before we close up this category, anybody else have anything they'd like to add to this list?
I have a bunch of things that I haven't heard from Muriel or Charles that I think you folks know about, but I have a very long list, so I'll just go through them really fast. We worked with UCLA Luskin School of Public Policy students to get a report out on car sharing. We worked on divestment issues. We were struggling with that, but I think that was anyway, this year we were certainly working on a motion divestment from fossil fuels for the insurance companies that the city of LA invests in. Leaf blowers, we worked on leaf blowers and getting education about that. We co-hosted an event on that. Let's see, a lot of these have been mentioned. I think we helped, Jamie York of the Reseda Neighborhood Council really led this effort, but we really helped with the Fire District 1 issue and preventing some of the changes that Blumenfield was proposing to go into effect. Don't know what the status of this, but we did take a position on, I don't even remember what it's called, but it's a transit corridor going from UCLA to the Valley. Took a position on Healthy Streets LA. Not sure what the status of that is. That might not be resolved until 2024 when it will be on the ballot if it hasn't been passed. Let's see, some of these have been mentioned. We took a strong position on Kevin De Leon. That has not been resolved, but that is something I want to talk about tonight because I'm still really, really mad and I don't want him to stay. We did a lot of education and took a position on hydrogen, which is actually, anyway, a very interesting and very controversial position. Charles, you want to talk about the biodiversity delegation?
Yeah, one thing, NCSA became an official party in the California delegation to COP15, which is happening right now in Montreal, which is the United Nations Biodiversity Summit and Conference. And Muriel's on that with me. Christopher Ahuya, who's also on our board, is involved with that, as well as Connie Acosta. And I believe we have one other person. Is Terry Saucier on that as well? I don't know if Terry's actually attended, but we have quite a few people who have been able to be part of that because NCSA was officially made part of that. And I was able to be involved with the policy committee for the California biodiversity working group. There's another word in there somewhere in that there's
global.
Like was it global? Yeah, global, which never always doesn't make sense to me. California Global Biodiversity Working Group. And to help set the policy agenda, and we had some influence in what the California delegation is going to be focusing on and its messaging. And a great way for us to also, as an organization, kind of get better known outside of LA, perhaps, and network with a bunch of different organizations around the state that are sustainability focused. And now we are virtually attending the conference. Several of us, and able to participate in what's going on. It's a lot of politics, so I won't go into too much detail on that, but I think it's been a very important thing for us to have a seat at the table. And so that's been a cool thing.
Thank you. Also, we got, this is a long story, but we are mentioned in a new native plants motion, so we can talk about that more. That just happened the other day, so there's not an update. We are one of the organizations that has been selected to join the LA 28 Sustainability Working Group. So we'll see what that's like. We've worked on reducing vehicle idling this year. That has not gone very well, but that is not dead. So stay tuned. We worked on AstroTurf this year. That has not gone very well, but it is not dead. So stay tuned. It turns out that's a state issue. So but we hate it so much because it's preventing us doing stuff at this level that we actually are probably going to put a little energy into a state thing. I did not go back and look at any notes when I made up this list. This is from my head, so there could be more that I will add later as I remember, but that's some of the other stuff we have done. Now, not all of these things have worked well.
I think you need to add also the seminars that you gave, Lisa, on EV charging and EVs and acquiring EVs. I know some of that extended from 2021, but I believe that bled over to 2022.
I think it did not.
Oh, it did not?
I'm going to say it was just 2020, 2021. Yes, I'm positive.
The seminars I gave on EV charging and multifamily residential were directly inspired by you and probably wouldn't have happened.
Oh, there you go.
So,
we'll add that. Okay.
So there you go. Yeah, absolutely.
That's
and that
good,
was
Charles.
Also, I'm going to throw a bone to Jesslyn from the Palms NC Green Committee. That wouldn't have happened without a lot of help and support from her as well.
Cool. Thank you. So So does anybody who was involved in Cool Blocks and who knows more than Polly does, maybe that should be me, want to say what our status with Cool Blocks is and what's going on and what worked and what didn't?
I think everyone would appreciate kind of a summary for you, for those of you who haven't heard it, and an understanding of the status and where we're going to go forward with it.
Fair enough. Could somebody who's there tell, Polly, could you give like a 1 or 2 sentence explanation of what Cool Blocks is?
Wait, are you asking me to do that?
Yes, I am.
Oh, Cool Blocks was a program that the city of Los Angeles had, and I think Lisa was spearheading it with someone from Paul Koretz's office. And it seemed very cool and very tied to our sustainability goals. It was basically getting all the people on your block to kind of meet at your house or somebody else's house and talk about neighborhood preparedness or other things that we can do together, like pass information back and forth about perhaps landscaping with native plants, or reusing gray water, or how to recycle. So the thing I liked about Cool Blocks is it made you contact the other people in your exact neighborhood and just your block, and try to see if you could work on projects together and pass information that might be mutually beneficial. I thought it was really great, but I never was able to actually do it because I was basically gone all summer long. And I know that Lisa had found maybe 20 captains in Los Angeles.
Well,
I'm
we
gonna
found,
mute
we
myself.
had, okay, thank you, Polly. That was very helpful. We had about 250 folks sign up. But what happened to Polly actually is what happened to a lot of people. They signed up and they got trained, but they didn't start. And we were doing this, just so you know, with Irvine and Petaluma. Petaluma had by far the most success of the 3 cities, but we did have problems, a lot of little things, a lot of big things, a lot of things we have to learn. We're not quite sure why it didn't work better. This is our second time trying it in LA. I will say, as of, I think, like a week or 2 ago, all 3 cities have left the relationship. We were the first, but all 3 cities really had a not, how can I say this? How about that word? I had a bad relationship, or a challenging relationship, with Empowerment Institute, which was funding the effort. And then the main reason, at least for me, is that we really, 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 really want it to work. And we had a lot of suggestions about how to make it work. And they were very, it's hard. Change is hard, right? We all know that change is hard. And the idea of the changes that we were proposing, the idea was very hard for them. And they were not ultimately very receptive. So that's where we are. There is a possibility that an organization we've worked with is exploring other ways for us to get funding to try this again, with more resources and more of an environmental justice focus. That was one of our other challenges. So we might try this again, but we don't know yet. So stay tuned. Also, lots of other cities in California are trying versions of this. So we are trying to stay abreast of that and figure out what we can learn.
Lisa, I'm sorry, I thought you're done.
I'm done.
Okay. Carol has also weighed in the chat, and it was a little while ago, and I was remiss in following all the stuff in the chat. Carol, do you want to talk about what you had in the chat window? Because she said her raise hand function's not working. So.
Hi guys, I apologize too. It's really dark in here, but I don't want to get up and try to turn on another light. So, oh boo-hoo, you don't get to see my wonderful face. Anyway, the thing I put in the chat had to do with Fire District 1. Lisa, you know all about that. And that is one I felt good about. I felt it was very important to not get that, to not have the city council pass something that was just going to bring us more concrete and steel all over all over the city, under the auspices that we needed fire safety, when in fact, even fire captains don't feel that way. And it took quite some doing, but I was able to finally get my neighborhood council members in the majority to vote to oppose that and come out in support of the NCSA position statement with that. I don't remember every detail because I'm struggling remembering anyway. And that's on the previous question where you were asking about some of the initiatives that we all worked on in this year that we want to cite and that we want to base future success upon such things. And a very important part of that was that we had lobbyists going around to various city council, neighborhood council meetings and putting out a point of view that was completely based on the builder's perspective and had very little to do with actual stakeholder safety, had everything to do with their profit margin. And it definitely wasn't good for the environment, what they were hoping to get passed. So I think that's a success. And then since I'm online and we're talking about Cool Blocks is something that I became involved with actually some years ago, and went to more than one meeting and met with the author, and I am very interested. I did not, however, sign up because I had to have brain surgery earlier this year, and this is the reason most of you have not heard from me or seen me for quite some time. It was largely successful, but I do have memory issues and I am struggling back to better health. But if we can get a new program going, new funding, I think that is an excellent program and I certainly would like to participate. I'm no longer the president of my neighborhood council, so, and I'm going under radiation treatment, but I'm not going to be as busy with the surgery anymore. So I think I could do something with that. I'm about to lose my connection because I have a low battery. So I got to run for a minute and get my charging cable, but Cool Blocks.
That's fine, Carol. We need to be aware of time as well. So
okay.
I'm going to ask us.
Oh,
thank you, Carol.
no, the important point I wanted to mention is both Glenn and I have been working with Cal State Northridge. They have their urban planning department, and they're very much into sustainable design theory. And I think if we can get our local universities, if each of us can work within the university system and work with those.
Okay, you're ahead of us. Sorry, Carol. I'm just sorry. I'm going to treat.
No,
we're not quite
cool.
there yet, but we're almost there. We're almost.
That
there.
had to do with Cool Blocks. I thought they could help us with Cool Blocks.
Okay, but we haven't gotten to the future just quite yet. But we'll get there very, very, very shortly.
Okay, well, I'm working with them now, but that's all. I'm going to go get my cord. Bye.
And
Okay,
to that same
you.
effect, I know, Celeste, you put a number of comments in the chat room, but they are future focused. So when Lisa directs us to go to that stuff, well, I'll recognize you and you can add that stuff to our conversation.
Thank you, Charles. Okay, so I'm looking at a list. I have a list of 24 things, which is pretty good. Another thing that I'm going to add is with Stacy Shore, we made several presentations this past year to.
I forgot. I'm in the middle of an NCSA meeting.
Can you mute Carol, Charles, or Nish? Okay, thank you. We made several presentations on our sustainability development guidelines to neighborhood councils and other alliances. So that was really great. Okay, let's see. Building decarbonization, we've got new buildings passed. We've got existing buildings. We have a lot of work to do to get that done. But we've got something passed, but we need the next step for sure. Oil and gas drilling, we've got a huge hurdle. We've got the motion passed, but the next step is going to be hard. going through. We have a lot more to do on single-use plastics. Kevin DeLeon, can we, well, let me just go through this list and I'll circle back to the Kevin DeLeon thing. Vehicle idling, sorry, I'm just trying to think if we want to talk about the status of any of these things. Lots of these things, so vehicle idling has not, still ongoing. So our real successes, honestly, were on building decarbonization. I mean, weren't our successes that we just helped. But were some of the big things we worked on, we celebrated yesterday. The oil drilling is huge. That's in a 10-year effort. The building decarbonization has been many years, as Ravi mentioned, and the plastics were another huge one. Also, I really appreciate some of Joanne's points because yes, I think we've done a really good job this past year or two strengthening our relationships with lots of city council offices and lots of city council departments. So that's something I think has been really helpful and important. Okay, everybody wants to talk about the future, and a lot of these things that we've already mentioned are about the future. I'll start off with one and then I'll turn it back over to Charles and whoever wants to talk about that. We still want to work on, we started this, but we haven't finished this. We want to figure out a way for the city to factor in the social cost of carbon. So that's something I personally would like us to work on in 2023. And, Cool Box, of course, and many of these other issues are ongoing. So actually, sorry, I know I'm jumping around. Kevin DeLeon, can we talk about that first for a minute? I would like to hear, it's possible that I'm the angriest and most passionate. It's possible that I'm not. I would love to hear from other folks. Particularly if you're in CD14, because you have more clout if you're in CD14, regarding how to move forward with the Kevin DeLeon question.
So let's do a couple minutes on that. And if you have thoughts on the DeLeon council member situation, you want to share them here, raise your hand, please. We'll start with Liz.
Yeah, I am a CD14 resident. And first we had Weezer, and now we have KDL. This time I'm talking to my neighbors who are not generally politicized, and they are pissed off. The thing is going to be getting the petition around to them, because a lot of them may not have access, because I gather you have to sort of actually sign it in person. And I think there's been some suggestion of having people go door to door to people who've expressed. And I think that's really important, because the first step is to get them kicked out.
I'm sorry, Liz, part of that was muffled. What's really important?
That we can access as many people as possible to sign the petition to get them kicked out, because the most important thing is to get them kicked out.
Okay, thank you.
Nish, you're up.
Yeah, so I live in downtown, so I'm a CD14 resident as well. And, definitely I was really angry and really disappointed and felt let down by his participation in that meeting. But at the same time, I do feel like there's a difference between what Councilmember DeLeon did and Nury Martinez's words. And something that I've been grappling with just on my own is, is there any room for atonement on his part?
Our country great again.
Sorry, let me try to mute.
Kathy, if you can.
I'll let Kate come back.
Hacked.
Won't let me. I keep trying to mute her, but it keeps unmuting her.
Okay, I removed her from the call.
All right, thank you.
There's a technology issue there.
Can I just say that particular person, who I don't think is Kathy, has been accusing me of sending private messages to people that I have not been sending.
That Zoom bomber used Kathy's name and came in separately. So I don't know. So I don't know was Kathy removed as also?
I removed the one that was making all the noise, and I think that was Kathy. So
I don't think it really.
No, she was.
They were on the Kathy imposter. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
but I don't see Kathy here either.
No,
I mean, the
that's
real
why I assumed-
Kathy, I don't see the
Right.
real. Kathy.
And Kathy was here at one point, but that's why I assumed it was she.
No, they were both here. They were both here at the same time.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, that's happened on other meetings before. Well, not this one, but I've seen it happen in other neighborhood council meetings. So I
Gotcha.
didn't think it
All
would
right, so
ever.
Nish, this kind of interrupted you. Do you want to?
Yeah, sorry. So I guess you had to continue my point here. Like, I just think that I've been grappling with inside is like, is there any room for atonement as a city council member? Like, if that's possible, and if so, like what should he do? And that's just something that I'm thinking about. I do think the issue of Latino representation or the lack thereof on the city council, especially in a city that's 50% Latino, is concerning, right? But at the same time, that doesn't mean that council members who are not of Latino descent don't vote or can't advocate for and vote in favor of issues that impact the Latino communities, that benefit them. And so these are all like discussions that I'm having internally. And honestly, the events that happened transpired over the past few days with Kevin De Leon being, the physical altercation that he had, like that was really disturbing to me. And that really impacted me. So anyway, these are all those kind of thoughts that are floating in my head. So yeah, I'm interested to hear what y'all think on that, or yeah.
So our great champion chair, Lisa, is back. So I'm going to turn over the chair duties back to her. But I think Jesselyn was next in our queue, Lisa, for this. So you're muted, Lisa.
Sorry. Let's try to hear from Jesselyn and Liz and Polly and Celeste and then move on because we do want to talk about other things, but besides and Vivian, sorry. And Vivian, and then we'll try to cut it off and move on to the next subject. The way things are going, it looks like we will unfortunately have more opportunities to grapple with this. So this is probably not the last conversation. Jesselyn, go ahead.
Thank you. This speaks more to the broader incident that happened in city council. I do support Kevin De Leon resigning, but I don't think that's going to solve the broader problem of racism. And I think that something I've learned, and I encourage maybe the NCSA to do and other people to do, is look at what can we do in our own organizations to combat racism and talk about specifically in this organization, maybe environmental justice. How can we uplift those voices and listen to people in the frontline communities and really bring them to the table? I think kind of counteracting something so dark and heavy with something light to be like, we don't agree with that. So here's what we're going to do to combat that with something good.
Thank you. Liz, you are muted.
I agree that Latino representation is lacking, but I also feel very strongly that KDL has not been a competent council member, that he has supported special interests and not allowed people who hold different opinions to access or even respond to them. And I think he's got to go. Thank you.
Polly. Okay, I don't know if Polly's there, so Celeste.
As a person of color who was also very active in the redistricting process, because what was happening is they were trying to divide up, balkanize the WNC, and the WNC had to be really active in order for that to not happen. I do think he has to resign. I don't think there is atonement for somebody who's actually politically trying to I forget the word, gerrymander. Thank you, gerrymander a community. And what really bugs me is that he's a person of color who went against another person of color. That's just egregious in my book. So as a person of color, and knowing that minorities are always minorities, and the reason why we never win is because we're a minority, so we don't get the majority of the vote. We have to have white allies in order to win anything. So I think that's a great question, Nish, about atonement, but I think in Kevin De Leon's case and the 3 council members here, that's not I would not, if he was my district council member, I would want to fire him. I don't know, I'm very new to all of this, but I don't know what the mechanisms are for the council district itself to be able to put it to a vote on whether or not they want to keep him, and then put it to a vote who they might want to bring in. So like for me, that's what I would want to see, because I'd be like, I want him out, but if everyone in my council district who was Latino wanted him, I'd be like, well, okay, I guess they didn't care and they want that gerrymandering, and that's how they want to play the game, and that's how they're going to get represented. But I just there's a lot of distastefulness that happened with that redistricting process. I don't know. Anyway, those are my feelings. I'm sorry. I don't want to take all the time.
Thank you, Celeste. Polly, are you there? Okay, she might not be. So Vivian.
Yes, good evening, everybody. I live in Boyle Heights and also born and raised in Boyle Heights. So I think that sometimes the misconceptions, if you're not in Boyle Heights, the thing is that we feel sometimes a sense of discrimination here, especially from Kevin DeLeon. I mean, we were at one point in time an extremely diverse community, and it appears that most of who, like the others, the Japanese, the Chinese, Armenians, are actually shunned from our community. I feel that if we're going to have some representation, that we seriously start to think about getting away from the Latino person and look for a qualified person. We haven't had any strong female representation. I think that's really what we need to focus on, is not the Latino surname. We've already had enough with, Huizar, Virgoso, and then now Kevin DeLeon, and we're also asking for some public records because we feel that discretionary funds have been actually given to kind of like, I hate to say this, but like more for Latino events than, some of the diverse events that we've actually done for, Nike Week, for the 147th anniversary of Boyle Heights. We're going to be celebrating also a Black History Month in February. So, we need the diversity, and we need somebody that really is diverse. And again, the old school politicians that are ongoing, we need to end these career politicians and really get some new blood in there, even if they have to have a learning curve. But as long as they've got their head and their agenda in the right place, I think that's really what we need. And having, an African-American woman, a Japanese, a Chinese to actually represent CD14 would be amazing. I mean, but anybody, just so that you understand that we are saturated with the Latino getting, a lot, getting away with too much. And, it almost looks like a third world country here in Boyle Heights. And, even Kevin DeLeon on his first town hall meeting, how he said, he was embarrassed by Boyle Heights, and he's not really wanted to invest time to help with Boyle Heights. So, it's an ongoing issue, and he really does need to go. He's not representing the people. Thank you.
Okay, let me say, I should have said this earlier. I apologize. I should have focused our conversation a smidgen more. For some of you might not know that we took a vote, which if it was not unanimous, was almost unanimous in support of him leaving. That was back in October, and here we are. So, and as Glenn, I think, mentioned in the chat, there is a recall effort going on. The challenge that I think many people are having is that the recall effort was initiated by somebody who has launched 3 other recall efforts, and she's very conservative, or her group. I'm not an expert on this, but it's coming from an angle that frankly would not be mine. So I think one of the questions in the community, I don't know what I mean by community in this term, but in the city, for advocates for him leaving is, do we want to align ourselves with these folks? And I don't know that people know the answer to that. I did see, Vivian, I'll give it back to you in just one second. I did see just today that DSA is probably going to launch a coalition effort. And I think I don't know what I think yet, but I think I'll bring that question to the advocacy committee to see if we should join their effort. I'm not sure what that would look like, but I think they're working on building a coalition. So that's on the table. Vivian.
I think the recall from the woman who's, you know, pretty much a conservative, I think she also missed some of the criterias, when she tried to have the recall the first time, the second time, and I think now she might have had all the criterias, and that's what she was missing. But I think even on another note, you know, ethically, there are probably some other things that we can do without having to do a recall, and then find out who's going to pay for that recall. You know, as he's got plenty of money, you know, when he was trying to run for the mayorship. So, you know, who's going to help with that you know, that funding. So I think ethically, maybe if there's some clauses that we can actually go and get ethically, as you know, everybody I'm sure has already seen the fight that he had with you know, a certain gentleman in Lincoln Heights, and you can see where he was actually extremely aggressive and how he pushed the guy on the table, and he continued to pick the guy up and push him down the hall. So, and then if he's concerned about his staff also, then he needs to stay away from the public forum as well as the staff.
Okay, thank you. I know there are some raised hands, but I'm going to try to move us on because I knew I shouldn't have said anything about maybe ending early. I jinxed it for all of you. I apologize. Let's hear from folks who have ideas for 2023. Was there stuff, Charles? Who was it? Was it Celeste who had ideas?
Celeste had like 3 things that she started in the chat room that we didn't reference. So why don't we start with you, Celeste?
Sorry. One of the things that I don't know how to move things through city council and stuff. So I'm just putting the idea out there, but I would love for every talk build from now on to have car share be a part of the bill, because the thing is what's happening is I'm in one of those high desirable neighborhoods that's being built because we're like just on the inside of the talk 0.5 miles, but we have Olympic Boulevard that's like basically a freeway between us and the talk, that they're trying to, you know, colonize our neighborhood to become multifamily neighborhood. And we're just like, oh my God, this is not going to work out with the not enough parking and all of this stuff. And so, but my big thing is, I know that the drive for this kind of density and then no parking is to make people drive in no cars. But we all know, none of us, if you ever look at all of your work records, I've never had a job less than 3 miles away from where I live. So I don't know about these younger kids who are using Uber and Lyft. I think that's great. Maybe there'll be a sea change in this next generation. But what I wanted to do was require car shares to be like a car share company, or just something where they have to have like 2 or 3 if they're really going to like kill all of the parking. And then and
Okay,
that's
let me just chime in. I just added that to our list because we're actually working on that not that. So that's a slightly different idea, but we are working on car sharing programs and incentivizing that. We're struggling. We're not kicking ass.
I would not even incentivize it. I want to require it as part of a talk bill.
That's a difference. So that's interesting. So I appreciate that. So you might want to come to our advocacy committee or transportation committee, sorry, where we could discuss that.
Okay. And then the other part was I'm kind of on, I mean, I'm here because of Charles Miller, because he had that, the tour for the native plants garden that he has over in his part of the council district. And I would love, because CD5 has Katie Yaroslavsky, who's a sustainability person. I want to drive that native trees and native plants landscaping through all of just complete sea change, and so that we could save our biodiversity, because that's not a hard thing to do. And all the landscapers that are contracted with the city, all they need to do is see the designs be introduced, and then that just becomes the new thing for the look of LA, instead of all of these, you know, the European style or the Eastern Seaboard style that just doesn't match. So I would love for a native plant push to be a requirement for from here on out, like 2022 or 2023 out, all landscaping becomes, you know, like 80% native plants or something like that.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, I'm just going to do this because I'm trying to move us quickly. Charles worked with Paul Koretz's office to introduce a motion that would have done something along those lines. It was completely gutted Because I think, and Charles and I probably disagree on this because, and I know less than Charles, so I'll say that. I think we need to do a better job building these relationships with these departments and getting them on board with this. There's a lot of resistance from city departments. So we are talking about this. Charles is working very hard on this, and it's definitely on the radar screen. So thank you, Celeste, for highlighting it. I appreciate that. Melanie.
Oh, gosh, thanks. Yeah, I want to chime in and sort of lift up what Celeste was saying about car sharing. And I'll point you to a specific in my neighborhood. There's a rather large development going in, proposing an insane amount of parking. But even in these developments that we're going to see more and more of and rather quickly, if they are in transit adjacent communities and they don't have to meet the parking minimums, the idea of having multifamily units provide building specific car shares.
So I should also tell you, I want us to move on, but
I will. Yeah.
But I just want to tell you that there is a company who we've met with called Envoy that works specifically on this. They work with apartment buildings to create car sharing programs in apartments, and they are doing this in LA.
Yeah, and it's just different to the stuff that you find on the streets, which the city has been doing. So this is something that's important. I would love to pick back up on the idling. It's not only delivery, personal trucks, but delivery trucks and MTA is horrible about it. I want us to support Livable Communities Initiative. It's going to be important and stand behind whatever needs to happen on the mobility plan. The other thing I would like to
wait, I'm sorry, I want to interrupt. I want you to know. I think that's on Muriel's to-do list to get a vote actually from the Transportation Committee on the Livable Communities Initiative. So we are actively working on that, just so you know.
Great, awesome. The other couple things I wanted to say, if we're going to take a stand to support the continuation of fare free transit, that would be nice. The things that we haven't dealt with as much, and I'll take responsibility for it, is water. So I would love for us perhaps to think about, there's been some motion to redo the low impact development ordinance, but not in a good way. We might need to take a look at that. And with the development that's happening, we know that per ordinance now in the updated safety plan, we're not going to see a lot of development in high fire risk areas, at least not in very high fire risk areas. We should push for basic, just not very, but any fire risk areas. And we should also push for what the city failed to do, which was floodplain. So if anybody saw the new UCI study about flood risk in Los Angeles, it's rather terrifying. And the city has been spending a lot of energy over the last 15 years of incentivizing development in the 100-year floodplain. So that is something that absolutely we should be pushing back in a very obvious and public way. We want the housing, but not in very high fire and not in 100-year flood.
Well, okay, thank you.
Yep.
And you reminded me, see, this is what I'm saying. I did not go through. We forgot to mention the LA River, because that is something, and Melanie is the one who got us working on this. We worked very hard this past year to prevent the LA River master plan from being supported by the Board of Supervisors, and we failed.
But they're being sued.
They are being sued, and that is fun for me.
It's fun, but I will say that I was told the other day that on a panel a couple of weeks ago, Mark Pastrella said to all convened, "Don't fight us, you will lose."
Okay.
And I think that should be a disqualifying statement for the head of a department, but I think that means we should double down. But we have an opportunity, at least on the city side, to push the new folks, because there's a lot of new people who have jurisdiction on the river. And so there needs to be a huge reset. And I will commit to putting time in on that with you this year.
Thank you. Thank you, Melanie. Yeah. Richard.
Hi, everyone. I'll keep it really short. I have two things that I'd like to propose as agenda items for us to look at this year. One is, now, okay, let me just caveat by saying I'm a doer. I'm not a policy guy. Policy is moving. It's being fought about all the time. Great. Keep the fight up. We're doing good work in that realm. I'm interested in implementation. First thing I'd like to focus on in the area of implementation is leveraging what's called programmatic permits for habitat restoration projects in the state of California. So a very wonderful organization called Sustainable Conservation, suscon.org for short, just last month announced programmatic permits from the State Water Board to support native habitat restoration projects anywhere in California. What I mean by programmatic is the permit is already there. If your project conforms to what the permit already says you're going to do, which is native habitat restoration, then you already have a permit. You don't have to go through the two years of permitting process. And this particular action was the State Water Board, but there's already harmonization and alignment with similar programmatic permits at California Coastal Commission, which if you've ever dealt with takes like 10 years to get a permit from, CNRA, and at the federal level, the Fish and Wildlife Agency, NOAA, as well as not last and least important, Army Corps of Engineers. So there are already fast track permits essentially in place for native habitat restoration projects. And I'd like to identify some such projects that might benefit from such permits. And I'd love your help to do so. Second thing, along the same lines, I would really like to engage the political process with respect to converting parcels in the city of Los Angeles to open space, green space, community benefit spaces. If you look at what has been done with Prop O money and now with Measure W money and Measure A to a certain extent, although I haven't looked at that one as closely, what they've basically done is gone and renovate and update existing parcels and improve the water flow capture and rainwater capture and all. And it's all great projects, multi-million-dollar projects needed to be done. Very few of them actually converted land from some other use to this use. Now, as you also may know, the city is kind of 3/4 of the way through a complete rewrite of the zoning process from updating from 50 years ago, the community plans. There are 35 of them covering the entire city of Los Angeles. They're all going to be put into effect in 2025. If you look at what they're doing there, they are introducing a few new zoning types. They're integrating what used to be sort of like overrides and exceptions to zoning into the base zoning process. So basically, city zoning has been completely redone as we speak. I haven't looked at it closely enough to see how well it supports reuse of existing parcels for open space and green space benefits, but I'd like to get your support and figure out how we can leverage the new zoning laws for open space, community benefit space, and I like to throw in the waterways because they go right along with it. There's a lot happening on Dominguez Channel. There's, of course, as we know, the LA master plan and so forth. So those are just two things that I'm passionate about, and getting projects done in our communities that deliver community benefit through open space, green space, and native natural waterway restoration. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Richard. Let's go to Celeste. You might want to say the things in the chat. I might not have a way to see them otherwise. Glenn, did you want to chime in?
Yes, so in terms of issues, besides all the others that have been mentioned, I'm concerned about the solid waste cover up. Blue bins that are, collecting, and one report only 1% of the waste is being recycled. I know there's a whole lot of factors, but I'd like to put that on our radar screen. And related to that is the issue of the microplastics, which are bad in the soil, but they're also bad in the ocean, although I guess the concentration is higher in the soil. And then in terms of some of the political discussion, right now the fate of Kevin De Leon, unless he's, indicted like some of the other council members, it's going to be in the hands of the voters of CD 14 with the recall petition. But we do have Council District 6 with, I think the last I saw was 17 candidates have filed, and tomorrow's the deadline. So I think there's a role for the NCSA to communicate with those candidates, communicate the priorities or concerns, maybe do a questionnaire, what are their positions on certain issues. And I know it's only 1 out of 15 council members, but maybe it's a more manageable one. And then reach out and coordinate with I think there's 10 or 11 neighborhood councils that are all or partially within CD6. So I think we'd have a role there to work with those neighborhood councils, and which would be mutually beneficial, because not only would the candidates be thinking more about sustainability related issues, but then hopefully the neighborhood councils themselves, which may not all be doing so.
Okay, I really appreciate that. Let me, just Tuesday, we talked about doing a forum for the CD6 candidates, but at the time, I certainly didn't know there were 17, and that might not be a good forum for so many candidates. So thank you for those suggestions. There is a healthy soils effort that I will also add. We frankly haven't done very much on this, but Koretz's office, Andy Schrader, did connect us to that. So I think either the microplastics in the soil would either be a fit in there maybe. And we are, as you know, working on the microplastics. I mean, that was the effort, one of the efforts that we celebrated yesterday, is reducing plastics, but that's a big one. And I don't know if I know what the solid waste cover up is, but I will say that we had sanitation come, I don't know which year, and they were talking about doing a better job communicating about which numbers in the triangle are recyclable, and I haven't gotten it. That was like, I haven't heard a thing about that. So I have some real frustrations about that. Okay,
Well,
so
and also
go ahead.
You know, one of the largest landfills that the city's using is filling up. What are we gonna do after that? And also, I just heard a report that the microplastics are now been coming down in our rainwater. That's really scary.
Oh yeah, and you guys, I was telling somebody the other day, I think what people are estimating is we each have about a credit card's worth of plastic in our bodies. So that's where we are with this stuff, folks. Celeste, you aren't raising your hand, but did you want to share any of the things you put in the chat?
No, which part? I was like adding to
No worries.
your other live things for 2023 future things. So I was concentrating on that. I don't know.
That's fine. Oh, you're in the Google Doc?
Yeah, I'm in that Google
Perfect. You're in the Google Doc. That's great. That's perfect. You don't have to say it here, and we are running short on time, so that's fantastic. And in case you didn't see it in the chat, everybody, I put the document that I'm working on, I shared with you, so you can chime in if you want. Now or later is also fine. Melanie.
Oh man, I forgot to put my hand down. I'm so sorry.
Oh, you're good. Sorry, I didn't realize. That's no worries. Charles.
Yeah, very quickly, I just would love to see us add an NCSA focus on getting EV charging in multifamily residential. Right now, we have an issue where there's city council effort motion underway to put more and more charging stations on city streets in places where we would lose street trees by result of putting chargers there. That's not really where our need is. There's a fundamental misunderstanding on what we need to do to transition to EVs. And yes, I know public transportation, we need to focus on all these things too, but the electric car is going to be part of the solution. And we need to make sure that people who live in multifamily residential housing have access to home charging, so that we don't create this inequity in society where everybody who can afford their own home charges at market rate for electricity, and everybody who lives in a multifamily residential pays surcharges because they have to go to some station somewhere else and charge on their own time instead of being able to just plug in at home like everybody who owns their own home. And if we put multifamily residential charging in nearly every apartment building in LA, we don't need to build up the infrastructure of putting chargers on the streets everywhere, because your car will get you around the city. We need them on the freeways for interstates, for when you take a trip to Las Vegas or something like that. And this is a really key time and an opportunity for us to get everybody changed away from the idea of going to a gas station to charging at home, because that can cover all of your municipal needs. And I think NCSA can be a real help in that, and especially the work Jessalyn and Palms Neighborhood Council has done and that I've been involved in. We can expand that to other NCs and to larger NCSA effort.
Yeah, and I had a grant from DWP, as Charles knows, and we worked on very hard on this for a while, but we have not done as much lately, that's for sure. Liz.
Yeah, I'd like to add the Shoal Canyon dump and the issue with Glendale
Say
because
that again?
the Shoal Canyon dump.
Oh, I know nothing about that. Okay.
You should. Basically, Glendale, it's a dump that's on the border of Northeast LA. It's contributed to particulate and air pollution for years. They have been methane flaring and polluting the air. They're going to be closing it down, but until then they're talking about building a so-called renewable gas project, which will further endanger air quality and increase the risk of fires along the ridge in a known earthquake area. And this is one thing that Weezer really was good about. He helped us fight that. And I would like to see NCSA take a look at this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And some of these things, by the way, if you want to move, you're probably going to need to join a committee because we are, all of this stuff is purely volunteer, or 99% of it is. But I should say that the Energy Committee did, and I think, did support an effort to require that DWP be transparent about any leaks at any of their, Scattergood, and I forget what the Northeast Valley station is, but any of these places where they are using methane to generate power, there are leaks, and they have not been transparent about that. And that was a motion that was introduced and that we supported after the leak near Pacoima, or in that area, Northeast Valley Station, or Northeast Valley Generating Station, I think it's called. And that didn't pass. Apparently because it's hard. DWP, that would, be asking them to really change their approach to this. But it's been picked up again recently. So yeah.
And the Glendale, the Shoal dump also leaches toxins into the water table.
Yeah, and the more I learn about this methane stuff, the natural gas stuff, leaks just come with the territory. Like you don't get to do this stuff.
It's not none, it's how much. Yeah.
What'd you say?
It's not if, it's how much.
Exactly. Thank you. Nish.
Yeah, I'd like for the Alliance to work on implementing or developing outreach material regarding multifamily unit buildings to comply with the state's law for for composting, right? Like I think right now the rule requires that single family homes or single family residences are provided with like the bins and whatnot to allowing them to compost. Like if we can come up with outreach material, which we can provide to building owners to enable like a composting system, and a flyer for residences to like kind of gives them the language to speak up to or request that their buildings provide that kind of infrastructure so that they can compost. I think that would be really great.
So let me stop you. We actually, Chris on our board is very interested in this. And this was the #1 request last year when we did what we're doing now last December. And so we had LA Sanitation come out and talk to us about what was happening. And the answer was, we can't find the vendors. We're behind. COVID really made things hard. So one of the things we want to do is bring them back. So that is on our kind of short list, to bring sanitation back and get an update. Because frankly, I don't know, but I suspect that, distributing flyers right now would not be helpful. And last year sanitation said, don't do that. Like that would not be helping them. So we need to check in with them and get an update, because it has been about almost a year. So okay. Thank you. Was there anything else, Nish?
Yeah, one other thing, I hope we just come out in support of all measures that relates to improving safety aboard and cleanliness aboard public transit. While that's not necessarily directly related to, clean environment, like I do think that improvements in that realm will increase ridership, which is important for a lot of environmental reasons.
Yeah, I suspect that that's just a metro thing. That's probably not the city, a lot the city can do, but Charlene, I just found out that Nish applied for the same thing that you applied for. So I don't know if the two of you know each other. Charlene,
No.
this is Nish, this is Charlene. Could one of you explain the thing that you applied for? Because I think it was the same thing.
Oh, the Public Safety Advisory Committee?
Yes.
Yeah, is that what you applied for too?
Yes.
Okay. So, and I did bring up, they asked for what goals you had, your main goals. And one of my goals was the cleanliness of not just the buses, but also the bus stops. So I did bring that up, and also improve lighting and street furniture. So that was one of my goals. So what you said about the public transit and the cleanliness, I put that as one of my goals.
Yeah.
So
same.
it would be great to have, this is a metro thing, but it would be great to have some representative from the NCSA / transportation committee on that. That would be really great. So I hope one of you or both of you get it. That would be amazing.
Haven't heard anything. Have you heard anything?
No, but I think I only submitted my application about a week ago, like right at the deadline. So I imagine it'd be maybe a week or so, or a while before I hear back from them.
Did you receive, I'll be quick.
Okay, wait, can't do this now. Can't do this now, sorry.
Okay.
But now you two know each other, and I can connect you offline if you ask me if you want.
Yeah, please do.
Also to that end, I want to just mention I'm now on the Metro Sustainability Council. So if I can be of some help, as a liaison to coordinate any of those kind of things, please reach out to me on any of those kind of issues. So.
Okay, did not know that. That's great to know. We got to know these. Okay, that's fantastic. We should talk about that. That's great.
I have my hand up.
I know, and we'll do Melanie, and then we're going to move on because we're running out of time. So Melanie, but you guys, I put the Google. You can put anything in the Google Docs. So if you didn't say anything, you can write it down. Go ahead, Melanie.
So I just want to note that Investing in Place is starting an initiative to take a look at how the city budget is investing in all streetscapes. So street furniture, conversion of public transit stuff. So they're really digging into how many different places are funding this and what's the coordination, where's the money going? So it's something that we can coordinate with the Investing in Place initiative. They've had two sort of teach-ins on this. There's a third coming up, and it's going to be a big thing next year. So sort of working with them, I think, alongside them on some of these issues will be super helpful. So they're looking at a capital improvement program, which the city's never had for transit. We haven't had one like anything. We did have it on Measure W stuff, but it was very opaque and secret. So,
and I'm glad you mentioned that, because Streets for All started a thing and we supported this capital improvement thing, and then everybody dropped it.
Yeah.
Things. Go ahead.
Other things were going on, but Investing in Place is picking up, and I think it's going to be sort of a collective, effort. So it's tracking that, participating in that would be helpful, and we can lift them up and amplify and fill in gaps if necessary. And then I just sort of wanted to say, we need to stay on top of sanitation. There's been a lot of changes over there. There's a lot of unhappiness over there, but they're behind schedule, state mandated schedule on the rollout. And there is a whole state produced set of handouts for different kind of buildings that's out there, but they've been sitting on them because they're behind on the rollout. So we need to ride them on this and pressure them on this. And I'm with you on that too. That's it.
Okay, that's funny. The handouts exist, but yeah, I know they don't want us to use them. Okay, that's funny and sad. Okay, so Glenn, we're gonna move to, you can always use the Google Doc, but I want to move to neighborhood councils, what you folks have done over the past year, what you learned, what you liked, what you're hoping to do in 2023. If there are any things like that you would love to share, that would be great. And John, that's what you were talking about. If you could talk about what you were starting to mention earlier when I cut you off, that would be great. And that might be the case for some others. So go for it, John.
Okay, and I'll try to make it quick. A little bit over a year ago, we started looking at a variety of things that need to happen, mainly trees. And we have helped in tree planting in our area and in the parks, etc., working with developers to point out, the need for keeping those trees, etc., when we can. Most importantly, is we have developed where we're helping DWP give away trees. Yesterday morning at 7 o'clock, we gave away 120 trees, no fruit trees, and all miscellaneous trees that they pick, like fruitless olive, etc. Crepe myrtles. But that's one thing that we have done as neighborhood council. I've adopted, along with Glenn, I have 4 of these sets of planters that are set. We have 4 in our area that we go and we pull the trash out, we water them, etc. And we're starting to get a side effect, which people aren't throwing trash in there. They're put in the trash cans where it belongs. But most importantly is that we as a group are now hypersensitive during our meetings to talk about sustainability and a variety of things. The pocket park that we take care of, a very small park, we've planted a Russian sumac there. We just cut back the other lantana, etc. We're going to be planting another tree in there. So a lot of this effect where the people see it, one, is important, but most importantly, they learn about the fact that, our trees are being reduced. One project that we're involved with, just quickly, the person came in to clear a lot, and it's a large lot, and they had 2 buildings on it, and I think it was 21 trees. Before the inspector showed up to check the place to give them a demo permit, they had pulled all the trees out. All the neighbors thought it was all legal and everything was fine. But in speaking to that inspector, he says, I don't know what was in there beforehand. Doing a search on Google, we showed the 21 trees that were there before. It was approved by the city, the permit. They're moving ahead with construction. So that's kind of one of the things that we've decided in our plum committees. As this comes up, one of our major questions, what trees are in place now and what's their plan to move along? So that's kind of with the grouping of things that we're doing. Thank you.
I love that, John. That is one of the reasons that I got the sustainability guidelines for developers working group going, because I really saw an opportunity for plum committees to do more stuff like that. So thank you. I think sounds like you're being a great model for the rest of neighborhood councils. Joanne.
But the caveat is that we every time you plant a non-native tree anywhere, you've taken up a spot that could have been a native tree, and only 3% of our street trees are native. So we're in a big biodiversity trouble, and we're trying to convert the city, including city plants and their planting partners, to plant natives, but we haven't succeeded. And we're, people like Charles and myself are struggling because one of the reasons that, Lisa used to ask me, why are you against tree planting? And the answer is, I'm not against tree planting. I'm against non-native trees, exotic trees that don't serve the birds and the insects and the wildlife. And unfortunately, the tree giveaways are almost all non-native. And this is a problem. And I think neighborhood councils need to put pressure on the planting partners to utilize natives. And so what's the big problem? The big problem is that a lot of natives do better if they start out in smaller containers. So you have to be willing to be patient with the tree because it needs to start smaller. And urban forestry fights us because they're afraid that the tree will not thrive on the city street. But if these are being planted in private property, they can start smaller. And, you know, I just bought a native tree at Theodore Payne, and it's, you know, it's I think it's a 15-gallon, and you know, it's a nice tree. It's just going to take a while, that's all. And walnut trees need to start in 5-gallon or 1-gallon, but just have some patience because they catch up. They do go with growth spurt, and suddenly you have a big tree. So anyway, I just, you know, I just want to encourage people to help the city move into that direction. And that isn't why I had my hand up. My neighborhood council inherited some adopted medians, and we have actually found a very environmental gardening service that can do huge medians much better than the ones that the city uses. And we've gotten them city approved. They're called Stay Green. And anybody who wants to email me, I can give you their information, but my neighborhood council is paying for them to keep up the mulch. They trim the juvenile shoots on the trees, and they also water as needed. And our medians look fantastic as a result. So we're very happy with this. Yeah, it's costing us, but I worry because I think our neighborhood council is going to disappear. This is a conversation we're having while Lisa was gone in the with her power problem, but with the neighborhood councils not being allowed to stay virtual after March 1st, unless we can all write and convince the governor that we need this, that we should, that we're going to lose neighborhood council people that are now accustomed to coming virtually and don't have time to meet in person. So my president told me today at a toy drive that he was going to have to resign, and 2 other board members are also resigning. And we had just a quorum at our last meeting, so we're worried. And I don't know.
Okay, so I'm gonna move us along.
Let me just.
You're reminding me that Liz had mentioned the Zoom.
Half a
Sorry?
sentence. So we don't know who will water, who will pay our gardeners if we dissolve. So.
Right.
Okay, that's it.
Okay, and Liz had mentioned earlier when we were trying to talk about the NCSA in 2022 about the Zoom going forward. So maybe that's something the advocacy committee can look at, although we are pretty busy. And I just remembered I should add charter reform. So I did. Okay, Jesselyn, go ahead.
Thanks, Lisa. Couple highlights from the Palms Neighborhood Council. We did a really cool cleanup day where we partnered with Metro, and they came out and did a free demonstration of Metro Bike Share. So folks that came to the cleanup, we did it at a station where Metro Bike Share was, and we did a little easy ride around the neighborhood, and everybody got helmets. They brought tons of swag. The cleanup was successful, so that was a really cool event. We did the EV charger seminar that Charles hosted. We're really lucky to have him on our neighborhood council. That was really awesome. We want to look at what next steps for pushing that more forward would be. We did an event for Clean Air Day where we got folks to sign clean air pledges in our little local park, and did some environmental, like recycled craft projects with some kiddos. And we're currently considering working with the County Safe Clean Water program, where they have some really amazing grants dedicated to hyper local projects for watershed projects. So we're not, I'm just throwing that out there if anybody else wants to look into the Safe Clean Water program. There's some really good opportunities there. And that's it for me. Thank you.
I would love for the NCSA to get funded through the Safe Clean Water program. I've been trying to figure that out for years, just so you know. Melanie.
Well, they're going to be paying someone a lot of money to run the educational programs, and they'll probably either pay the
consultant they've been paying millions of dollars to for the last 6 years, or one of the, large nonprofits, but it might be a conversation that you should raise
Okay.
on Measure
Thank you.
W. Our neighborhood council, which is, one of the nimbiest, most frustrating ones on the planet, at least did our good and very successful and seems to be community-wide anyway. I'm not sure about the project that we're working against, but the one on fake turf and the hazards thereof, and looking to get folks to, make that not keep happening in Los Angeles. And we talked about also native landscapes and other stormwater and stuff like that as well. And it was a successful community event. The neighborhood council has been obsessed with 2 projects in particular, both on the river, both way too much. One of them just needs a lot of changes, but the other one shouldn't be happening at all because it's on a piece of open space on the river that should not be developed, and it's Harvard Westlake's expansion. Everybody seems to, half of the community throws up their hands saying it's Harvard Westlake, how are you going to fight Harvard Westlake? And the other half of the community is like, we've been fighting this for 20 years. We don't care who it is. This is a bad project. They're proposing underground parking garages into the groundwater table, privatizing what has been a pretty much open space, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what my neighborhood council is working on, trying to educate about plastic turf and trying to protect open space along the river in Studio City.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, let's hear from Pat and Richard and then move to, we're not going to do our regular committee reports because we've been really talking about the work everybody's been doing already. I'm realizing that Heidi Feldstein Soto did not join us, so I am sorry. She was going to. I don't know what happened. And we also thought Hugo Soto Martinez might join us, but he clearly has not either. Richard.
I'll just keep it real short over here in San Pedro. We've been keeping our eye on the port for 20 years, and we're going to keep doing it for another 20 years. We are at a bit of an inflection point in the shipping and logistics industry, though, I gotta say. The technology is just coming online and is starting to be adopted by industry practitioners to actually decarbonize heavy shipping. And as you know, the ports have been looking at their truck and rail traffic on the land side, and also the ocean freighter portion of the shipping puzzle also have options. So I won't go into any details here, but you can count on San Pedro to keep an eye on that. In fact, you may know Richard Havenek, who was the chair of the Environmental Sustainability Committee, and on this board, I don't know how regularly he attended, but
He was never a member. He's never attended.
Oh, he wasn't? Okay. Anyway, he's focused on ports and decarbonization initiative for the shipping industry. And I'm going to be taking the sustainability committee more as to a neighborhood focus and quality of life issues as it relates to sustainability for the residents and small businesses here in San Pedro. So we've got plenty of green space, actually. It's 13% land coverage according to our latest community plan. So I'd like to see more green space like in Wilmington and Watts and some upriver places. San Pedro's got trees. But Joan, maybe we could use some of your native trees.
Thank you. That was great, Richard. Pat.
Hi. Okay, regarding Encino NC, we did a really good project in coordination with San Fernando Valley Audubon Society, transforming a portion of our local fire station to native habitat. We would like to expand that ongoing from a project like that. You have maintenance issues. We could use more volunteers. I've also consulted with other fire stations regarding doing similar projects. We have also, through Encino Neighborhood Council, we have an ongoing weed and clean project.
What's it called?
We're going up and down Ventura Boulevard, pruning.
Oh.
I call them crap myrtles. I wish we could get native street trees, but we're pruning them up, cleaning them up. It can be a big mess. One time it was so bad I threw my sneakers out when I got home. It was so bad, but we're doing our best. And I think this goes back to what we discussed with the breakout group with Charlene. We're concerned that our community be safe and people want to be there. And I think if people see people taking care of their community, they're going to get engaged and it's going to help. And this may not be a big deal, but I think community by community, this is something that turns what we have now into a livable society. So just saying.
Well, thank you. I want to say there is so much that so many of you just shared that I was not aware of. So I'm just super impressed by how much is happening at that hyper local level. And we have talked about, this was a suggestion of Charles, that we formalize this kind of conversation and include it in each meeting if we can, so that we can be sure to hear from you the amazing things you're doing. So you can share it, because that's fantastic. And I hope it's nice for everybody to hear what everybody else is up to. Okay, we have 3 minutes. Does anybody have, well, let me make 2 announcements. Our next meeting, I realize I don't know when it'll be, but it'll be the second Sunday of January, I think. And we will, it might be on the organics thing, because that is something that we've been talking about and that we're hearing that you are interested in. And the other thing is our advocacy committee will be meeting I think we're going to do it on the 3rd Sunday, because it's normally the 1st Sunday, and that's New Year's Day. And Abundant Housing LA might present, so stay tuned if you're interested in that. Okay, any other announcements?
We should just throw in that trees committee is going to meet Saturday, January 28th, 1:30 on Zoom. Joanne, you want to add anything to that?
Yes, I'm going to do a tutorial on how to use the city tree inventory, which some people have had some issues in how to navigate it. And I was supposed to do that at my workshop, but the site was down. So I didn't do it at the Congress of Neighborhoods. And the other thing is we're going to talk about chiming in on DEIRs. These are draft environmental impact reviews that sometimes that sometimes happen in a local neighborhood. For example, right now there's one in Silver Lake that people there are chiming in on. It's very important. The deadline's December 18th.
16th.
16th, I'm sorry. She is good. And you know, you have it's tricky, but you don't have to read the whole thing. You need to find the appendices that deal with the things that we're concerned about, like trees. And then when you do comment, it's good to utilize certain scientific reports. And I'm going to share the one that CFAC did for the sidewalk repair program, because apparently it's 27 pages. Apparently it's so good that Attorney Jamie Hall uses a lot of citations from it. And I was one of the writers of it with a few other CFAC members. So we want to get people to do more advocacy on a local level that might not be something that everyone in the citywide is doing, but if it's a project in your area that has an EIR and you want to, or an MMD even, in a negative declaration. These are all CEQA analyses that have to get done for big projects. So.
Okay, thank you.
that's The 28th at 1:30 on Zoom. It's a Saturday.
I don't see that on the calendar. Can you put me on that committee and send me the invite, please?
Give me your email address in the chat and I will do that.
Yep.
Polly,
Sorry, I had to close the door because the birds were making so much noise. I just wanted to say that listening to all that have all accomplished over the last year in your neighborhood committees and what you want to do this year has just been phenomenal for me because I come from the greater Wilshire neighborhood, city neighborhood council. And I want to say that we get our little committee is maybe 3 or 4 people. And we've had some meetings, but we have very poor attendance. We just got Victoria Simon to talk to us about the Green New Deal and we advertised it everywhere. And through our personal connections, we got 15 people on to listen to a talk. And that, we should have had many more. I just wonder what I was wondering is how many people come to the fantastic events that you've been talking about? Is it like 5 or 10? Like, for example, the ones that I think it was Jesselyn was saying.
Polly, I'm sorry, we're over. So this is a great conversation, but I think we should continue it next month. I think it's a great conversation about outreach. So actually, let's try to agendize that for next month as part of what we're doing. Because I want to respect people's
I
time.
would love to do things, but I think we're missing the hook to get the people involved.
Yes, and everybody on this, everybody here will agree with you. We all have that challenge and I'd love to have a conversation with all of you about, ideas, because I think that's really, really important. So thank you. Farmers.
Thank you. Since Joanne was talking about DIRs, I figured I'd just mention this year, 2023 is going to be the time when LA Metro will be holding community meetings about the draft environmental impact report that it's preparing on the Sepulveda Transit Corridor project.
Say when that is again. I don't know if you were here when we were talking about that earlier, but I didn't know the latest on that.
Oh, sorry, I only came at 8 o'clock, so I missed that discussion. But they haven't announced dates yet. They've only said that they're planning to hold some community meetings early next year.
Okay.
So that is that they are not planning on releasing the DEIR most likely until 2024, but the components of it, the inputs of it, they're going to have public meetings on this year, 2023.
Okay.
And then the other quick thing that I want to mention is we might want to pay attention to the changes in the tiers for the water rates for DWP and to encourage DWP to change those rates in a way that promotes more conservation. And I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, that's a huge issue that I don't know how much Melanie follows that, but I'm not going to know tonight because it's 8:33. Thank you, folks. I'm always in awe of how much wisdom and knowledge there is in this group. So thank you, all of you, for bringing that and sharing this here. And if I don't, some of you I will see before the end of the year, but if I don't see you, happy holidays and happy New Year.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Can you put the
Take care.
evaluation link again?
Sure, I think I can do that pretty easily. Let's see if that's true. It is true. There you go.
Happy Solstice Hanukkah, everybody. It's always good to be inspiring people.
Is that the latest? I didn't know
That's
that.
what I've always been saying for a couple decades. Try to fit it all in there. Solstice Hanukkah.
Very inclusive. Thank you.
A little bit of a tongue twister, but agreed.
You get used to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.